Contributor, Republican strategist Alex Castellanos. He's the co-founder of Purple Strategies, a bipartisan communications firm. Guys, thanks very much for coming in.
Thank you, Wolf.
That recent CBS News New York Times poll, how's President Obama handling foreign policy? 46% approve, 36% disapprove, 18% unsure. It's less than 50%. That's not a ringing endorsement of the president who wound up managing to kill bin Laden.
Well, Wolf, when the president came into office, we were in 2 wars. Our reputation around the world was suffering. Since then, we've ended the war in Iraq. We've caught bin Laden. Gaddafi is no longer walking around. And we've really restored our relationships. He's done quite a bit to improve our place around the world. And I think that's what people will be looking at. But we're still facing some challenges, and that's why he needs to remain in office for another 4 years.
Is this going to be a big issue at all, you think, assuming that there's no war or any major crisis, terrorism crisis or nuclear crisis? Is foreign policy, national security between Barack Obama and Mitt Romney going to be a major issue this time around?
Well, that's the big assumption, isn't it, Wolf, is that we don't know. What we do know is that weakness invites the wolves, is that when a weak United States is perceived as weak, things become unstable around the world, and we've seen the world become increasingly unstable during the presidency of Barack Obama. You know, this is the president that sat down with Putin Jr., Medvedev, and said, hey, here are my cards. I'm in a really weak situation right now. Take it easy on me. I'll give you what you want after the election. That's terrible poker. No one does that, and you certainly don't do that with you know, a global competitor and adversary.
You got to tell your friends at the Romney campaign. You worked for them 4 years ago. You're not working for them this time. There is no more Soviet Union. There's no more Czechoslovakia. You know, they got to get the language correct if they want to be responsible and authoritative on these issues.
They do need to get the language correct, and I think comedians all over the country are relieved, even though Newt Gingrich has dropped out, that Joe Biden is back. I think he can maybe watch his language a little bit, too. But the point about the Soviet Union is that there's a historic Russian compulsion to expand and to reassemble the Soviet Empire and to control those resources and basically to insulate themselves, protect their borders. This is a petro-fueled state
but there is no Soviet Union now.
But I think that's what they're referring to.
But you know what? The Vice President, Joe Biden, he got some snickers, we heard earlier in Jim Acosta's report when he spoke about a big stick when he was at NYU today. He also had this reference, and it similarly caused a bunch of snickering among the students there. Listen to this.
This guy's got a backbone like a ramrod. No, for real. For real. I promise you, the president has a big stick. I promise you.
He was in the White House for a while. You know, these words, you know, they could have double entendres, shall we say.
Well, Wolf, look, I think we can all rely on the vice president to bring empathy and bring experience and also bring some humor from time to time. So I hope that's what people take it as. I will say, though, that, you know, this race is between Barack Obama and Mitt Romney. What we've seen from Mitt Romney's foreign policy approach is that he wants to go back and dust off the old go-it-alone approach. And I think that's something that scares people across this country as well. You know, and also, he was against going into Libya and going after Gaddafi before he was for it. So there's a lot we don't know, and I think there'll be a conversation about national security in the months ahead.
I won't comment on Biden's words because this could be where I get banned from CNN for life. But the only person that brags about how tough they are usually the people who aren't. This is a president who couldn't find his big stick when people were trying to find freedom in Syria and in Iran in the streets during the Spring Revolution there. So this is a president who talks tough but then sits down with Medvedev and says, you know, shows him all his cards. It's not strong leadership, and without American strength, there's more instability in the world.
Alex,
we're seeing a world on
fire. You got to give him credit for making that decision, not an easy decision, to send those Navy SEALs into Abbottabad, Pakistan.
Absolutely give him credit. But also, Wolf, one of these days, I'd like you to run 2 bites. One is what Barack Obama said after he caught and we killed bin Laden. And what George Bush says after we caught Saddam Hussein. They're so different. One of them is I did this, and the other one is we, and those brave men in the SEALs. It's just a very different approach, and I think a sense of arrogance.
You want to respond to that?
Well, one, I will have to say, as Wolf mentioned, that going into Pakistan and going after Osama bin Laden was a very difficult decision for the president to make that showed leadership, that showed strength, that showed pragmatism. And he went and he thanked everybody who's been a part of it. He thanked the SEALs. He applauded every person who was a part of that team, even people who were in the administration long before him. So I just have to completely disagree with your point.
Watch your statement sometime. It tells you a lot about Barack Obama.
Wait, we're going to have a lot more on this part of the story, by the way. In our next hour, Time Magazine, in their new cover story, has a Peter Bergen article on what happened in this past year. It's almost a year since bin Laden was killed. Graham Allison has a good article. We're going to preview that in our next hour, guys. Thanks very much.